I did not grow up in Washington. I moved to the state of my own free will. Our family packed up and moved from Missouri all the way to Washington. We were tired of the hot summers, miserable winters, awful income and earning potentials, and overall, we were just bored with the Midwest. You are not the only one that is asked if moving to Washington is worth it. My name is Austin Robertson, and I am your favorite Seattle area real estate broker. Let's jump right into it. First of all, when you're considering moving to Washington, the overall beauty of the state is something that should immediately pop into your mind. This is 100% a plus for the state of Washington. Easily, it is one of the most beautiful states in the entire country. Washington has some stunning views with dramatic mountain ranges like the Cascades and the Olympics, along with sweeping evergreen forests. Hikes are endless, and believe me, Washington residents take outdoor activities very seriously. Washington ranks in the top 5 most active states in the entire country. Speaking of all the beauty in this state, you'll find that when you move here that our residents take the environment very seriously. And it's not the tree hugger story you've been sold on Fox News or even CNN. Washingtonians take great pride in leaving their own little impact on the environment. You can expect to see others and probably yourself becoming pro-recycling, possibly getting into composting and shopping consignment. In fact, shopping secondhand stores like the Goodwill or like a Value Village, they aren't frowned upon here. Instead, they're actually celebrated. So are you a big fan of wine? Well, second to California, Washington is actually the largest producer of wine in the entire country. How impressive is that? I mean, Washington is home to over 795 wineries. Sipping wine is a weekend favorite for many of us living in Washington. It's fun to take a tour, do a little tasting, and then just relax. There are stunning vineyards from places like Leavenworth all the way down to Woodinville, across the Columbia Gorge, and no joke, there are quite a few that you can find in people's backyards across the state. The summers in Washington are absolutely stunning. Yes, winters here are dreary and rainy, but the second summer hits, it's like your mind just completely forgets about it. In fact, summers are, in my opinion, one of the biggest positive aspects of moving to Washington. Many people actually refuse to leave here just because of how stunning the summers are. You know, in the major cities on the west side of the state, summer temperatures rarely eclipse 90 degrees. One note I would like to make here, coming from a different part of the country, is that summers are not muggy or humid somehow, even though there's water everywhere. I was plagued with humidity and awful hot summers in the Midwest, with the weather being perfect. And in the Seattle area, it only rains 1 or 2 days a month. You can really get out and enjoy the season. And outdoor recreation here is no joke. And that actually brings me to my next point. The locals here are very active.
Entire Pacific Northwest, everyone's dressed like there could be an impromptu hike at a moment's notice. Well, I'm going for a coffee, but you never know what a hike might break out.
In fact, Seattle ranks in the top 5 most active large cities in the country, and Bellevue ranks as one of the most active middle-sized cities in the country. Despite it being rainy, we don't miss any opportunity at all to be outside and moving around. You'll probably find that your friends and those that you work with are more likely to invite you out to a hike, kayak, or a workout before sitting in the house drinking a beer. Now, the PNW is a huge attractor of climbers, hikers, campers, mountain enthusiasts, and just fitness enthusiasts in general. You might find yourself on a quest to live a healthier life that is supported by your peers than maybe so where you were from before. All right, let's talk about taxes. This is actually one of my favorite things about moving to Washington, is that our state does not have a state income tax. Washington is one of only 9 states that doesn't have a state income tax. And this is actually a huge deal. If you had the exact same income in Oregon, your money would be worth about 10% less due to our neighboring states' income taxes. That money really adds up over time. So if you're in Portland and considering a move to Washington State for retirement, I will let you know that you are not the only person that has thought that idea before. Washington is also considered one of the most dog-friendly states in the entire country. I really had no idea what this meant until I was here. And I'm not just talking about out in the country, I'm talking about in the cities too. In fact, a recent study showed that there were more dogs in Seattle than there were children. It's very common to sit down for lunch and for me to see a dog sitting under the table or one sitting next to you. Places like outdoor cafes are basically free-for-alls, and parks, and honestly, even some workspaces at this point allow dogs. In my neighborhood, it's not weird to see a dog in high-end clothing like North Face or Patagonia, not to mention shoes or slippers. I promise you, your furry friend will love life in Washington. When you're looking for work across the country, Washington has endless opportunities for you. So in this case, let's just take a look at my city, Seattle, for now. Our largest contributor to the GDP is information and technology, which, I mean, that really should be no surprise with companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and others right here in our backyard. We rank over and over and over in the top 10 cities to find a job in the entire country. If you're considering a move, let's have a conversation. I'll figure out what you do, and I can send you some incredible companies that might work well for you. Alright, well, I promised you that I would show you both sides of the coin. So let's now take a little bit of a dive into some of the things that I consider the downsides or the cons of moving to Washington. So first off, as a real estate broker, let's talk about the housing market. In order to keep up with the housing market in the past 12 months, you would have had to have earned just over 34% more income than you did last year. Now, what's absolutely wild is that that is on track for the national average, but our housing prices are more than double than the national average. The Pacific Northwest is a very desirable place to live. Competition is steep, which makes it an overall expensive place to live. Seattle is now considered to be one of the most expensive places in the entire country to buy a home, and the city of Bellevue is constantly in a battle to be the most expensive city in the entire country. So just brace yourself for that when you go to make your move. If you're making that move, reach out to me. Let's find an area that fits your budget and your family's needs. Next, I'm a super social person, but I had a little bit of a hard time making friends. People were nice enough, but never too nice, if that makes sense. I had never heard of the Seattle freeze when I moved here, but I can tell you that we experienced it a little. People just overall tend to be reserved and keep to themselves. People do respect your privacy here. But here's my quick tip to avoid this. There are a ton of transplants, just like myself, who would be more than happy to be your friend. Make sure you're connecting with those transplants. All right, it rains a lot. You probably already knew it, but I mean, I had to say it. In the winter, Washington becomes the 5th most rainy state in the country. The winter months tend to feel so long because of the large amounts of rain, how dreary it is, and our big dark. The sun sets super early. When living in Washington, you are surrounded by so much beauty. That's why it's called the Evergreen State. But it's earned. It's earned by that rain. Summers are different in Seattle. The summer months only will see about 2 days of rain a month. Straight up, our sales tax sucks. We tie for the 10th highest sales tax in the entire country, coming in at around 6.5%. And I know what you're thinking, okay? Well, 10th isn't that bad. But when you plug that in and then you add on the city tax, especially in major cities like Tacoma or Seattle, it's very easy to see yourself paying upwards of 10.3% on whatever it is that you're buying. On the nature side of the cons, wildfires are becoming more and more prevalent. 2021 and 2022 taught us that this is something that might be more common and be a daily occurrence in our lives in Washington. Last year in Leavenworth, I was on a nice little weekend getaway and I could hardly make out the mountains because of all the smoke. Lastly, make sure you check out your emotional state. We see a huge increase in seasonal affective disorder. The gray winters are a real thing, and it's something that makes people honestly think twice about moving to Washington. Washington is said to have 2 seasons, rain and bliss. It's completely true. If you tend to get bummed out, I suggest taking vitamin D and investing in some sunlight lamps. Well, there you have it. Those are my honest pros and cons of moving to Washington from my experience. What do you think? Would you move here? What else, if you live here, would you add to this list? If you are considering a move to PNW, I would love to help your family on your journey. My information is located down below in the description. Shoot me an email or even give me a call. Until next time, I'm Austin Robertson.